Hi, my name is Cheyenne, and I have chosen The Woman and Child on Balcony by Bert Morisot to do for my presentation. The reason I have chosen this painting in particular is because I really like Impressionism as an art style, but also I love the contrasting yet duality factors that go into the colors between the dresses on the mother and or the woman and the child in the painting. Um, the subject matter of this painting is a woman and a small child. The style is Impressionism, and the what they're doing is they're looking over the balcony. There's scenes of lots of building and landscape. Um, Seems to have a lot to look over. So the size of this painting is quite interesting because it is only 20.6 centimeters by 17.3 centimeters, or about a little over 8 inches by a little under 7 inches. This is about the size of a large photograph. It's not very big at all, especially compared to some artworks or what's considered normal, I guess, for artwork. But I think the size of the painting actually really goes to show the importance for catching those moments of light and those fleeting moments of movement that Impressionism is so famous for, because the larger the painting and the larger the work, especially depending on what the medium is, the more difficult it's going to be to capture all those little details. But to have such a small canvas for getting all of these different movements and like visuals down would have really aided more so into capturing everything she wanted to capture with her paintings. The color difference in between the woman's dress and the child's dress is quite interesting, along with their positions as well. So in the painting, she might not be directly standing over the child, but from the viewer's visual, it very much looks like she is protecting and leaning and hovering and just generally guarding and watching this small child. Also, the color difference in the dresses worn can be an indicator of what is a purity or an innocence in childhood. And as we go into adulthood, we kind of shed that a little bit with the awareness that is life and take on maybe some darker hues to show that lived in experience. So Morisot herself was one of the first women impressionists, if not the first woman impressionist, to really exhibit her works in the early years of Impressionism. She exhibited her works with very well-known artists such as Monet, Manet, Renoir, Degas, Cézanne, and others. And she also had a very close friendship with Manet, um, and even married his younger brother Eugene later on in life. The importance of Impressionism is it's very big, because it is actually kind of the birth of what we know as modern art. It's where art kind of started stepping away from the realistic, romantic, really dark themes that had been known up until that point in time, and really started to take on these new like realities of lighter brushwork and maybe like more flow, more movement, more contrast. Right before Impressionism had really been born, Romanticism and realism were very much popular at the time as far as artistic works go. Both of them depicted in Romanticism depicted intense emotion, dramatic scenes with high contrast, um, while realism depicted the harsher realities of everyday lives, often of the poor. Its subject matter was complemented with equally dark color schemes throughout the paintings. So, when Impressionism came around, it was developed in the mid 19th century of France around 1850. The whole idea about it was spontaneity. It was about catching these beautiful, fleeting moments of the everyday, such as light and movement, with scenes of everyday life and landscapes being the most popular, as seen in these um, paintings up here. We have a woman reading, a woman fixing herself up in her bathroom, a woman playing the piano, and a very beautiful picture of a pond. Um, the the reason why the woman at her toilet is in the bottom is because it is also another painting by Morisot, and it is very telling and very, very visual of what Impressionism was at the time of its creation. The the structures of the subject matter are there, and it's quite visible. You can tell that's a jar in the back. You can tell that is a mirror with a very faint reflection of what's on that table. But the capturing of the light and the movement with these big, beautiful blue brush strokes and these reds that are all still very visible yet aid in depicting the scene for what it was. There is a huge sense of movement due to these brush strokes throughout the painting, showing that it is alive and something is going on within. Morisot is definitely one of the defining figures of early Impressionism and is definitely a defining figure for what would inspire modern art eventually. Um, so to move past to this painting, the woman and child on the balcony, what's really interesting about this is that according to the Delphi collections, which it is a book that encompasses all of Morisot's works. It states that there are actually at least two, I think two iterations of this painting. So there is one that is currently as of publication of the book, it is currently stated that the first one here on the left is at the Art Institute of Chicago, while this one over here is actually held in private collection at last known at publication. So the first one that is currently held at the Art Institute of Chicago it's a watercolor with very clear graphite or pencil marks being seen underneath, while the one that is currently held in private collection is actually oil on canvas. And what I believe it shows is the one that's held at the Art Institute is actually the one that was caught in the moment. And then later Morisot actually came back and she did another one where it completely defined what she had caught initially in that first moment. The hues are much stronger, the work is much sleeker in a sense, the lines a little more crisp. Obviously it's Impressionism, so they're not too defined, but they're definitely more crisp. You can definitely tell more of what's going on. The woman's face has a more of a general shape. The landscape in the background is not as large. There's actually more of it, but it's become smaller. And this plant right here does not take up as much space in the top. So it's quite interesting to see kind of in the work what Impressionism is all about. It's all about capturing that moment, while later she came back and completely defined what she had caught in that moment to create a beautiful image after the fact as well as before the fact. This just goes to show that Morisot really was a defining figure in her time and was quite a talent at what she did. Not only is there movement in both of these images, but In the latter image, there's a calm, much serene type of look over the woman's face as she stares down. Her and this child stare down over the balcony, doing what they probably do all the time in their daily lives.